And here we are, inside Guild Wars. And what I'd like to do right now, for the first time player, is to really kind of go over what the main screen is and why Guild Wars is very unique. And first of all, you can see that very clearly down here. In Guild Wars, unlike every other game pretty much that I know of, there's a skill bar down at the bottom. And in this skill bar, you have 8 skills that are available to your character at any one time. So when you go into any district or any adventure area that you go into, explorable area, you will have access to those 8 skills. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you cannot change those skills until you return to an outpost, a city, or a town. So once you choose them, that's it. You are stuck with that for the whole duration of the mission, so you have to choose wisely what those skills are. How many skills do you have available? 1,319 skills. Those are the maximum number of skills in the game that are available. So have fun putting them together. And that is actually where a lot of the fun is. There is so much room for creativity, for experimentation. On any build you want, you can create anything in this game, and that is the real charm of Guild Wars, in my opinion. When you're in Star Wars The Old Republic or a lot of MMORPGs, your skills really define you. You get a certain set, and you can increase certain effects of those skills, you can increase certain attributes of those skills, but your role is pretty much set by the classes you choose. That's not the case in Guild Wars. There's a little bit of that because your primary class determines who you're going to be most effective at. What you're most effective at. And that is one thing to keep in mind. However, you're not strictly forced into that. So, in Guild Wars, you have a primary profession and you can also have a secondary profession. So, here I have a monk. She is my monk. I'm going to just put up the list here. But if you look at this drop-down menu over here, you'll see a monk elementalist, which means I have access to not just all the monk skills, I have access to all the elementalist skills as well. That's very unique. You can create a monk with lightning spells, fire spells, earth spells, water spells, and anything of that sort. The only thing you do not have access to in your secondary profession is the primary unique attributes of that profession. So here I have 4 primary attributes and 4 secondary attributes. You can think of them as skills or skill lines or schools of magic, essentially. So for the monk, her unique one is divine favor. So for every skill I use that affects an ally, there is a 3.2 heal bonus applied to that skill as well. So it really amps up a lot of the healing spells. It also provides a moderate amount of healing if I use a protection spell or a smiting skill on an ally. So you can always be in kind of that healing role, even if you're not focused on that healing role. And that makes it very unique to the monk. But that is only to the monk class. What you do not find here is the skill line or the school of magic that is particularly unique to the elementalist, which is called energy storage. Energy storage means that the more attribute points you put into energy storage, the larger her energy pool becomes. So that's why elementalists have the largest energy pool in the game. While the monk, as you can see, I'm down to 33. The energy pool of an elementalist can go up to 75 or 80. They have a huge reservoir of energy, but that's unique to the elementalist. Now, here you can see the attributes. The attributes are 200 points. There are 200 points that you can spread around to any of your primary or secondary schools of magic, or skills, or abilities. So if you're a warrior, you have different combat lines that are unique to particular weapons, essentially sword, hammer, and axe. But for the monk here, I have my primary one, which is divine favor, which I already described, and then 3 magic schools: healing prayers, smiting prayers, and protection prayers. And what you will do is you will take these 200 points. You can have a maximum of 200 points. You can't go over more than 200. And you distribute them into what you want to do. And this is where a lot of the skill building comes into for Guild Wars. And here's where you have to really start making some decisions. Do you spread yourself out? Because here, I mean, look at this. You can spread us out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Across 8 magic lines. If you do that, you put one here and you grab one skill from each, you're going to be highly ineffective. So there is the question of specialization. What do you want your build to do? What do you want your character to do? Because once you go into your mission or you go into explorable area, that's it. You can't change these. So once these attributes are allocated, that's it. You can't reassign them during the gameplay in the exploration fields. You have to again return to an outpost, switch your skills around, switch your attributes around, and that's about it. There's only 2 cases where you can change a little bit of it. One is if you are leveling up, if you're between levels 1 and 20 and you gain a level while in the exploration area, you will get unused points and you can assign those while you're in the exploration area, but you can only assign them to go up. You can't bring them back down. So once they're assigned until you return to a town or an outpost. The second one is there's a particular piece of equipment. You can change armor and equipment that will affect some of these attributes. So for example, I have a Radiant Dragon Scalp of Major Protection Prayers. This one gives me a +1 protection prayer, +2 protection prayers. And what that does is increase the protection prayers as long as I wear this. So if I come up here, you see my protection prayers go up by +3. Now you can switch that during the middle of the combat mission if you want to switch over to healing prayers. Let's say you got some lines in healing, you need to focus over there, amp them up a little bit. You can switch out your healing prayers scalp, and bang, you get 3. You can do that during the mission, and the same with armor. You can switch out the armor, so there is a little flexibility, but when it comes to the base attribute points, you cannot change those when you're in the exploration area. So most of the time, once you set that up, you are good to go, or you're bad to go, but you're going, and that's what you've allocated. So preparation is 90% of the battle here, and that's what you'll see here. So again, there's 8 skills, and there is a lot to consider when you're building a skill bar. And that's what we're going to go through a little bit today. With these 8 skills, you can create anything you want from your primary or secondary profession. And also, when you go into a town or outpost, if you get to a certain point in the game, you can actually switch your secondary professions. Let's say I go to Monk Necromancer. Now I have access to the secondary skills of the necromancer profession. So now I have curses, I have death magic, I have blood magic, etc., etc. I don't have any of the skills, frankly, because I was strictly a monk elementalist. I didn't expand too much out from there. But if I had those skills available to my necromancer, you would see them come all the way down here and open up a whole new lines of necromancer skills. So if I want to play a monk necromancer, could be interesting. That's available. But anyways, we'll switch back to monk elementalist here. Okay, so when you do the monk, first thing to consider, or you do any class, the first thing to consider, and the most important thing to consider, is what role are you going to play? And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of roles you can play, but they do essentially fall down into the traditional roles of healer. There's a kind of a tanking role that warriors are very good at, and there's DPS roles for elementalists, but those are very, very, very basic roles. Here, the roles can take on any kind of form, and you can create very unique roles that can give you a certain advantage during the game. So, for the monk, let's say you want to do protection. Protection is a school line or spell line that mitigates damage as it comes in. And it's very important to have a good protection monk, particularly in the latter portions of the game where the damage can go really high, really fast, and even faster than your healing spells can hit them. You can help mitigate the damage and keep things going so that your character that you're trying to build doesn't get overwhelmed or spiked existence before you even have a chance to heal them. So a protection monk is always worthwhile. Takes a bit more skill to use sometimes than the healing prayers. The healing prayers are very effective, but they're kind of straightforward. They heal, and they're very good at that. So you do want a good healer on the group. But the protection, this is what's going to keep a group alive when things really start to go south and you need to mitigate damage. So let's say you want to do protection. Your group needs protection, you can do protection. So there's a couple of different ways to do this. First of all, when you build out a character, make sure you have access to all three major skill lines with your headpiece. So here, let's see, we want to do protection, we'll put the protection. So bang, there's the +3 protection from the runes themselves. Now we'll start to attribute points into protection. So we'll crank this up. You can go up to a maximum of 16. I'm 1 down on the rune. You can have up to +4 on rune, so you can crank it up to 16. But traditionally, for attributes, the maximum you go is 12. And then runes will have to stack on top of that to increase it even more. And the other one that's to look at, let's say, okay, I want to do protection, but when I apply a protection skill, let's say Guardian, onto an ally that's being hit really hard, I also want to give them some healing as well when I do it. So I'm going to crank up some Divine Favor. And here is a very specialized protection prayers build. It's 2 lines, protection and divine at the same time. So you can really specialize into 2 skills and you still have access to this whole list of skills here. And if you go into Divine Favor, you have access to this whole list of skills here. And that right there can easily fill out an 8 skill bar, an 8 class skill bar. But let's say, well, let's not go strictly to protection. We'll also do some healing as well. Give our healing monk some help, so it's not strictly on the healing monk. We can also do healing ourselves and split the skill bar, let's say half and half. Now you notice I took points out of protection. That's not the best idea. My recommendation is to actually take points from your primary unique line, especially if you're not using it. That's where you should probably pull a lot of your skills. Let's say we got 14 here, we got 11 here, we got 9 here. That's a pretty good spread. So you get your 2 skill lines or magical school lines for monk that you can use, and also Divine Favor. And again, Divine Favor has its own skills as well, so you actually have 3 lines that you can use. That's not even putting 1 point into Elementalist. So let's take a look here. There's a lot to consider when you start to build here. Now, a lot of these skills are beyond the topic or scope of this video, but we'll jump in here. But there's a couple things to consider. So let's take Protective Spirit, and then we'll take Reversal of Fortune, then we'll take Aegis, and let's see here. Let's grab another one. And we'll do Mandate Element. Okay, so we'll grab 4 here. I picked these 4 skills, but they're very, very different. And there's a couple things I want to show you about picking a skill when you put in your skill bar. There's a lot of things to consider. Again, how to build out your role. So Protection Spirit here, for 22 seconds, target ally cannot lose more than 10% maximum health due to a single attack or spell. Very good anti-spike spell. So if you're going up against particularly air magic elementalists or something that's really raining down damage very, very hard with very strong spells, put this on an ally, they will lose no more than 10% and really helps your healing if you're doing the healing or another healing monk, or if they're doing their self-healing, it gives them a chance as well. So very, very important. However, take a look. It costs 10 mana. So if you look at the little blue orb, you'll see that it costs 10. There's a 1/4 second casting time, and there's a 5-second cooldown. So that's pretty good. This is a nice little useful skill. It's not too expensive. It has a fast cast time and has a pretty decent cooldown time. You're not going to be waiting for it for very long. So this is I always kind of pick this up when I do a protection monk. It's a very useful skill. Next one, let's do Reversal of Fortune. For 8 seconds, the next time that the target ally would take damage or lifesteal, they gain that amount instead for a maximum up to 76. Again, very good reversal for high single point attacks, but if they're actually getting hit by like a very weak attack, like maybe a single sword strike, they'll trigger that as well. So it can be good or bad, and you have to think of the situation. If someone's getting spiked really hard, drop this on them because they'll get a lot of healing. But if they're getting a lot of melee or a lot of drain, then it's not going to do a whole lot. So that's one thing to keep in mind. However, this is again a very quick cast, 1/4 second. Again, going left to right. The blue is the mana cost. The middle is the casting time, and the far right with the little circle arrow is the recharge time. But very low cost in terms of mana. It's only 5 mana, quarter-second casting time, and 2-second cooldown. So this is one of the those main toolbox types of skills you can have all the time, and always there. You can always drop on there. And here's one thing to also keep in mind when you're doing protection mode. When you put the reversal of fortune on someone, it doesn't just do the reversal of fortune. You also get the bonus from the divine favor. So they do get some healing from that as well, from your divine favor attribute. So that works out really well. Now let's go to Aegis. 10 mana, 2-second casting time, but 30-second cooldown. And what this does is that for 11 seconds, all party members, all 8 party members, have a 50% chance to block attacks. So melee attacks or arrow attacks or something like that. It will not block spells, but it will block physical attacks. This goes across your whole party. This is a nice spell. It's very, very useful. But one thing to keep in mind, the more powerful, the more effective a skill is, traditionally either A, it costs a lot more mana, or B, there's a longer cooldown. In this particular case, you could see it has a 30-second cooldown. So once you trigger this spell, it gives you and you and your party a big bonus in blocking attacks. But you're out for 30 seconds after you use it, so you have to wait a while before it comes back. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So typically any skill that affects the whole party and gives you a boost like this, you're going to see a long cooldown associated with it, for game balance issues. Next, we'll go to Mend Ailment. Mend Ailment, remove one condition, and also you heal that ally for 66. This is also a very good skill. Again, you're going to run across a lot of things in this game. You're going to run across ailments, you're going to run across hexes, you're going to cross enchantments that you need to remove, and like spells and all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of complexity, but ailments can be one of those things that it can overwhelm your group. You can have poison, disease, blindness, daze, you name it, and there's got to be a way to get rid of it. Protection Monk is the best way to do this. They can remove this very quickly. Again, very cheap, only 5 mana, 3/4 of a second casting time, and a 5-second cooldown. Now, but this can only target one ally. A lot of these conditions, especially if they get like a step on a trap, which is well known to be put down by rangers, that can affect multiple characters. This skill's gonna be busy a lot of times because you got a lot of ailments to remove. Now, there are more powerful skills inside the monk line that can remove multiple ailments, can wipe them all out. But again, those are typically called elite skills. Elite skills are these skills in yellow. They are very powerful, very effective skills. They are more powerful than typical skill, but you can only have one in your bar at one time. So if I want to do what I just described, and it's like, you know what, I really want condition removal, there's a skill called Martyr. Martyr will transfer all conditions from all members onto you. And then here's the thing, you can combine this with your condition removal. So let's say you do this, then you do this. Again, that ally will be healed for, any remaining condition. They will get 66 health. So this is where combining skills really becomes an art form. You take the Martyr, take all the conditions from everyone, you line them on top of you, you'll explode, you'll get probably crippled, you get bleeding, you get everything, and then, hey, guess what? You can use Mend Ailment, and you get a lot of healing for each condition you have on you as you whittle it down. Or the other way you can do this is do what's called purge conditions. You can purge out all of them at once. So you can do a Martyr, boom, pull them in. Again, low cost of the skill, and then bang, you do the purge conditions, wipe them all out. But again, as I mentioned, purge conditions is a pretty powerful skill. There's a 20-second cooldown. So if you use Martyr a lot, but your purge conditions is still on cooldown, guess what? You're gonna have a lot of conditions on you, and you can't do anything about them. And that can actually put you in pretty serious trouble. So you gotta really think how these skills come together during your build and what they bring to the group. And that is just touching the surface of building out a skill tree. Again, this is a very simple example with protections, prayers, and combining skills. And let's say, okay, like I said, we want to do healing. All right, so we'll go in here. We want to help our healing monk, or maybe I am the healing monk. I may be doing both jobs. Well, let's see here. Again, there's cost, there's casting time, and there's cooldown. And let's see, you want to spread this out where you're not waiting on a whole bunch of skills to come off cooldown to be effective. You, especially for a healing character, you can't afford that. So I always pick Horizon of Healing. Again, this is one of those toolbox skills. You're going to use it all the time. It's like a screwdriver. You know, this is your basic healing skill. Only 5, has a 2-second cooldown, plus you get the bonus of Divine Favor. You're going to have this one up all the time, and it can affect everyone. It can affect you. It can affect your group. Okay, we need something a little more powerful. We need something a little more meat into it. You know, really get some healing out when someone's just being absolutely murdered. Well, let's try Heal Other. Now this one does quite a bit more. Now, Horizon of Healing does 57 health. Heal Other does more than twice that. Very effective. Again, it has 10 mana usage for its skill and a 3-second cooldown. So it's a bit more expensive. This one is not cheap on the go, but there's one other thing to really look at. Look at the description. Heal target other ally. What does other ally mean? It means anyone other than yourself. So you can't use the skill on yourself. That's one thing to be careful, particularly with the monks. Look at the skill description very carefully. If you see some target other ally, that means you can't use it on yourself. You can only use Horizon of Healing. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. And lastly, for a monk, we'll always take a res skill. Always very useful. If you have I won't say a party wipe, but if you have a couple people down, you're the best one at bringing them back to life. So there's one in Healing Prayers called Restore Life, which is very effective. You have a very basic resurrect here. Now this one here, you can resurrect. It's not as good as the other one. And there's also one in protection as well called Rebirth. And this one will resurrect someone and pull them into your location. So if you have someone who's down that's in the middle of a group of enemies and they're patrolling the area and you can't go back in without aggroing the whole group back onto what's left of your party, if you can get up to the edge and where that person is, where their body is down, and not aggro the group, you can use Rebirth and pull them back into you. It's a very useful skill, especially in PvE, particularly in PvE. You don't see this in PvP a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of use. There's one side effect is that you lose all energy as well, so this is almost strictly a PvE one. Restore health, though, this is a very good one, but again, you gotta be up to the ally, you gotta touch the body, but it's very, very effective as well. So that's just one character, one build, in one profession of the game. You can imagine that this takes on a whole new level of exploration, and that right there is what you need to go through in your thinking before you start going out into the exploration area. Now, don't worry, as you get used to the game, as you get used to playing the game and playing with people and playing with builds, you'll have a very good idea very quickly on how to build this out and what you need to do. But the first thing you need to think of is what role you're going to play, how you're going to benefit your team, how you're going to damage the enemy, what you're going to bring to the table, and realize you can't bring everything to the table. You only have 8 skill slots. You've got to work together with your team as a whole to really be effective. So that's very, very important. One quick thing also as well, you spent all this time and effort in doing this. One very nice thing, one addition to Guild Wars, you can save your template. So let's say you save it here, you can put a template name. So I'll put Prot, if I can spell correctly. Let's just put Prot Monk. You can save it here, and bang, you can always go back. As I really like this build, I'm going to save it. You can load it up, hit the Prot Monk, hit load. It will put in all the skills directly from your tree, and it will assign all your attributes as well. So the only thing you need to do is make sure you have the right equipment on, you have the right weapons in order to affect your skill line that you want to do, and you're good to go. So a lot of players, they'll have a whole tree of skills builds that are available. Now this is saved to your local hard drive. I just had a computer wipe recently, so that's why all mine have gone away. But once you save these, they're always available. You just pick one and boom, you're good to go. So anyways, I'm going to leave it here for now. Again, there's a lot to cover, a lot to consider, but I just wanted to give a taste of the considerations one needs to do when they come into Guild Wars and they build up a skill bar. Again, this is what makes Guild Wars very, very unique than any other game out there. I have not seen an MMO RPG do this since. There is a ton of experimentation This is why Guild Wars has stayed around for as long as it has. I mean, again, this game is almost 10 years old at the time of this recording. But it's still going strong, and this is precisely the reason why. You're not going to see this anywhere else, and this is what makes Guild Wars so enriching and rewarding to learn, because it is a very highly skill-based MMORPG rather than just grinding or equipment-based MMORPG. So there's a lot of skill that it takes to building these builds, and then there's a lot of skill in how to use those builds, and we'll cover that a little bit later. So anyways, I'm going to leave from here. We're going to continue with Guild Wars Academy on separate episodes, and I hope you stick around. I hope you'll learn a lot, and we'll go from there. Take care.